Tough again, I know. We use this word, I use this word pretty regularly, lectionary. Can somebody real quick, 2 sentences, tell us what the lectionary is, in case there's someone here who does not know what that word means?
It's a 3-year cycle that gives the readings for each Sunday.
It's a 3-year cycle of readings, yes. Every Sunday, there are readings that are assigned. I always say they're suggested because we don't use them all. But it's supposed to lead you through the entirety of the Bible. You read something from what we call the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures. You read a psalm, which is also in the Hebrew Scriptures, but you know, it gets special treatment. You have a reading from the New Testament, and then you have a reading from one of the Gospels. Since there are 4 Gospels, it's kind of strange, right? You have three years. There are 4-year lectionaries. There is what we use is called the Revised Common Lectionary. And you can, if you're interested, you can find that on Vanderbilt University's website. If you ever want to read ahead and try to figure out what I might talk about. So, with that out of the way, yesterday was All Saints' Day, and the assigned texts were from Daniel and Luke. And I imagine that's why, the reason that those texts were assigned is this part of Daniel. At the very end, our translation says the holy ones, but that can also be translated saints. Saint means someone who is holy. The saints of the Most High receive the kingdom and possess it forever and ever. And I think that's quite lovely. And I think that it's asking us to use it in service of kind of a medieval understanding of the afterlife. We'll talk about that later, maybe, if I remember. So about a month ago, I was watching a YouTube video about science fiction. And I saw the presenter wearing this t-shirt, and I thought, I have to have that t-shirt. So I ordered it. And because I live in the Lesser Crested Butte area, my address was not correct. So it was sent back to the sender. And when I thought, I got to get my $20 back, and I called them, they said, yeah, we don't know what happened to it. So I was complaining about that to Kim, and she said, what did the t-shirt say? And I got really embarrassed. Not because of anything obscene, because this is what it said. Yes, Imminetize the Eschaton. And we're driving, and I said that to her, and I looked over, and she looked out the other window and said, huh. Huh. Okay. Now I'll tell you what that phrase means in just a minute, but I want to tell you about it first, okay? Yeah, you're not alone, by the way. Everyone else was like, huh. Yeah, and then I realized how silly I would look wearing that. I still want to get it. I'm going to order it. Of course you do. I'm going to need to have it. It comes from, it's a response to William F. Buckley. Do you all remember William F. Buckley Jr.? He's the kind of conservative that liberals today long for, right? Kind of this arrogant, full of himself, obnoxious, aggressive, but rather erudite. Erudite, what a great word. Rather, he could present and speak very well, right? And he had that kind of mid-Atlantic accent. He just seemed like he was better than you, even when he was saying things that are very bad, right? Do you remember that guy? Oh, yeah. Yeah, libertarian, had a show on PBS. Really? Bill? That doesn't work. But he was also one of those people who could evolve, right? He was very opposed to the civil rights movement, said horrible things about black Americans, and later on said, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said those things. Anyway, he stole that phrase from someone else. Do not imminetize the eschaton. Don't do it. In other words, don't make the end of the world, the end of this age, and the beginning of the new one, don't make that immediate. Eschaton is a way of talking about the end of the ages, right? The end of the world. And to imminetize means to make immediate, to make imminent, to make here and now. And so it is this fear that if we move too quickly, we will cause all kinds of chaos. That's why he was opposed to the civil rights movement. He was a gradualist, right? Lots of nice people are gradualists. Do not imminetize the eschaton. Do not bring about the end of this age and the beginning of the new one too quickly. Yes, says my t-shirt that I do not have. Imminetize the Eschaton. Eschaton is like this word I use a lot, apocalypse. Where's the bingo card? Yeah, Paul is so excited. We're going to say all the words today. Imminetize the Eschaton. Apocalypse. Apocalypse, as I always tell you, is kind of this twofold thing. Apocalypse is a kind of writing, right? It is a form of writing. It's a way of telling stories that is very psychedelic and poetic. And there are all kinds of horrible images and monsters coming out of the sea, like in Daniel. And it tells a story that is intended to peel back society and to show you the ugliness at the heart of empires and hierarchies and structures. Then, it's supposed to give you hope that it doesn't always have to be that way. That's the end of that little reading. But the saints of God live in their kingdom forever and ever, right? There's this story of these horrible beasts coming out of the sea, stomping around, but this tantalizing hope that something might be better. The power structures of the world all falter, but then Daniel says, no, that's not the end of it. It becomes this way of being in the world. Now, Daniel's written it's written about a time that's like 600 years before Jesus. It's set then. The stories of Daniel. Daniel, as the character, the figure in the book of Daniel, lives 600 years before Jesus. It's probably written about 160 years before Jesus. They're not real stories, but they're great stories. Some of them are the stories, like Daniel gets thrown into a lion's den. Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, decide not to worship this image of the king. And they get thrown into a fiery furnace. The furnace is so hot that even the people that throw them in catch on fire and burn up. That's how hot it is. And then somehow the king is able to look inside this furnace. So let's suspend a little bit. But he peeks in and sees not 3 people, but 4 walking around in the fire. And the 4th one, it says, is like a son of the gods. Very cool. And then they come out, and they don't even smell like smoke, and their hair isn't singed. And you want to know what conditioner they use. So that's half of Daniel. The other half of Daniel is these wild visions that Daniel has at night, and he dreams about the end of the world. And by the time we get to Jesus, Daniel and the book of Ezekiel and these books called Enoch, they have all begun to shape how lots of people are expecting the world to go. The world is terrible. Why is our God, who used to lead our ancestors out into battle, ignoring us? Why are we captives? Why is our country overrun by foreigners? Not in the way our country is overrun by foreigners, friends, okay? So just put that aside. Why have we been taken over by oppressive powers? Well, maybe God will fix it all later. And then that leads into that kind of medieval idea that someday, after this life is over, right? What will I do? I'll fly away, right? We move somewhere else. And it kind of lends itself to that kind of thinking. And so you end up waiting and wishing things were different, counting on divine intervention. And here's the song lyric for you. This is from John Mayer. I do not like this song. BTW. Me and my friends, we're all misunderstood. Sorry, John. They say we stand for nothing, and there's no way we ever could. Now we see everything that's going wrong with the world and those who lead it. We just feel like we don't have the means to rise above and beat it. So we keep waiting on the world to change. Yeah. Okay, that's a great protest song, right? Hey man, let's all just sit down and wait for something to change. Let's not try to change it ourselves. And I think that lots of Christians have that sort of mentality, that kind of idea, waiting for something to change. And then we cart around that medieval idea of our hope of some kind of afterlife where everything might be put right. And maybe on a day like today or yesterday, like a day like All Saints' Day, it's nice to hope that things might be set right, especially for those people that we love, who are gone. And death is apocalyptic to us, isn't it? There is this horrible end, and we realize, everything falls apart. Nothing lasts forever. And it draws us down into that sort of anxiety over the way life is. And I, because I'm a very dark person, I don't enjoy that feeling, but I feel at home in it. I feel comfortable in it. On my best days, my very best days, and my very worst days, I have the same thought. We're just killing time until we die. We're just finding things to do, right? We're just waiting for the bus to come and pick us up and take us off somewhere else. And the visions of people like Daniel and Jesus and Paul in the book of Revelation and San Giovanni de Fiore, is that right? Yes. Joaquin of Florence, right? Anyway, you should look him up. He's an interesting guy. All of these visions of what maybe the world might look like later, those fall flat to me. I feel like, well, we're just waiting for things to change. I get it, but I don't love it. One of my favorite philosophical rock lyrics, it goes like this: birth, school, work, death.
Oh, joy.
Well, for some reason I find that comforting. We're just amusing ourselves to death, as Neil Postman's book might have said. I used to read a blog called Bleak Theology, so I kind of see it. But that song, birth, school, work, death, doesn't end there. I want to go to paradise, and I don't need your sympathy. There's nothing in this world for me. Birth, school, work, death. That may be a closer, a Christian sort of story, but maybe we're both wrong. Not maybe, I think we are both wrong. And we're not sitting around waiting for Daniel's vision to be realized. We're not waiting to die and flit off to a better place. We're not waiting for the world to change. None of those things are accurate. We are working towards something else. The contribution that Jesus makes to apocalyptic writing and preaching and thinking is that it takes the work out of the hands of God and puts that work into the hands of his disciples. We're not just waiting for something to happen. We're not just waiting for transformation. We're not just waiting for whatever we think the kingdom of God might possibly be and wondering if it will ever materialize with any sort of clarity. Rather, Jesus creates this divine and human partnership. And we're called to create this new world, not even by tearing down the old one, but by living as though it didn't matter, as though it doesn't even exist, allowing that old world to wear itself out and die of neglect because we don't take it seriously. We all take the empire that we live in very seriously, don't we? It is real. It is as real as anything. It's been said over and over again that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. It is easier to imagine the end of the world in these dark apocalyptic stories than it is to imagine the end of the American empire, in which we live and move and have our being. And the invitation of Jesus is to imagine that that world does not exist, that it isn't real, that we are drawing down this new way of being in the world by centering those who are marginalized and by sharing and driving out forces of evil, bringing the lost into the light. Oh, here, I want to show you all this. Here's one way we probably can go about doing that. Have you seen these posters in local stores?
Yeah, President.
Yeah, maybe we should put this up in our window. What it says is, everyone is welcome here. And then there's an asterisk, except ICE. Right? Now, if you work for ICE, you're welcome to come. If you are ICE, you are not. Perhaps. We find these ways of bringing the eschaton into being. So, many years ago, I probably mentioned this to you all before, I'll mention it again, I'm sure in the future, my friend Arvin Ram told me, you should start a discussion group talking about the Sermon on the Mount. And I said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, Arvin, so we'll do it. So I put a very small notice on Facebook, and a bunch of people showed up to drink coffee and read the Sermon on the Mount. None of them identified as Christians, or I shouldn't say none of them. Very few of them identified as Christians, and as the discussion went on, fewer did. I feel like an evangelist. Someone told me, who was part of that group, I thought I was an atheist until you started this group, and now I know I am.
Good job, Ian.
But reading reading the Sermon on the Mount, several people said at various points, hey, just real quick, do Christians read this?
Yeah.
And I said, no, not very often. It doesn't happen. We don't read it very
Once
often. We
every
don't
3
care
years.
about it. Once every 3 years we read it and we try to explain it away so we don't have to live it, do anything with it. You'll notice that Christian nationalists who really want us to put the Ten Commandments, whatever version of the Ten Commandments that they don't really know, up in classrooms, never want the Beatitudes on the walls in classrooms. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor. They don't want that. They especially don't want Luke's version of it, by the way. Matthew kind of spiritualizes the Sermon on the Mount, and he puts it on the mountain, right? It's like Moses giving the law. Luke, and I think Luke does this on purpose because Luke likes to undermine things. I think Luke says Jesus went out to a wide open place, to a plain, not a mountain. Maybe this is my inner anarchist. Luke says this is not about constructing hierarchies. This is not about power over. Jesus comes along and does this in the flattest place he can, and he doesn't say blessed are the poor in spirit. He says blessed are the... And you say that to some Christians, most Christians, they will say, in spirit. Yeah, okay, cool. That's according to Matthew. Let's talk about what Luke has to say about this. That's too hard. That's too hard. There's nothing virtuous about being poor. Well, go fight with Jesus. I don't know what to tell you. Nobody wants to hear that. I certainly don't want to hear that. We find ourselves moving toward that sort of, that eschaton of transformation when we read the Beatitudes, when we read what Jesus is talking about. We find ourselves being changed by what the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Plain has to say, because it flattens us all out and it changes everything that we have, everything that we do, and everything that we are. We become something completely different. We find ourselves imminetizing the Eschaton when we move in those directions. And I wonder how we can go about doing that in this apocalyptic moment in which we live. I sometimes think that the Trump administration, not Trump himself, because he's kind of a clown, right? I mean, he would be great. I keep thinking he would be great as a color commentator for NFL games. He would be great on the red carpet, before award shows, because he's kind of petty, he's kind of small-minded, and he's kind of funny. He would be great for that. But he has surrounded himself with this kind of apocalyptic team. And it's wonderful because this team is stripping away the veneer of niceness. Because problems with SNAP existed before these folks got into authority. Problems with our border policies existed before they got into power. We were disrupting and messing with other governments before these guys got into power. What they've done is a very wonderful thing. They have acted apocalyptically and demonstrated the cruelty behind it by forefronting the cruelty. So we should be in some ways grateful? I don't know. But in this apocalyptic moment, what we can do is to live the way Jesus invites us to live, which is, again, to center those who are marginalized, to care for those who are harmed, and to pray for our enemies. I don't know how to do that, but I hope that together we might be able to learn how to do that, and together we will imminetize the Eschaton. Amen?
Amen.